Hey guys, welcome back to Macy's channel. My name is Ashley, also known as Curls for the Girls, and in today's Extreme Looks video, we are going to be creating a fun and exciting glitter skull. So first up, I'm going to prime my face, and today I'm going to be using the Smashbox Original Photo Finish Smooth and Blur Primer. Alright, so we're done priming. For foundation, I am going to use the LANCôME Tint IDOLE Ultra Wear Foundation in the shade 435 Bisque Warm. So I'm just going to take my beauty blender, I've already wet it, and then I'm just going to bounce that around my face to blend that out. Alright, that looks pretty good in my opinion. Now we're going to move on to concealer. I am going to be using the Urban Decay Naked Skin Weightless Complete Coverage Concealer in the shade Medium Dark Warm. This is one of my favorite concealers. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the highlighted areas of my face, and I'm going to be using the Dermablend Original Loose Setting Powder. It really helps the face look airbrushed. This looks scary already. This is my IT Cosmetics Heavenly Luxe Wand Ball Powder Brush. And this is my favorite for dusting away my setting powder. So I do it in circular motion, so I start at the forehead and just work my way down. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna begin setting my face. So first up, I'm going to use my MAC Prep and Prime Fix Plus Spray in Original. And I feel like if your face is not super wet after using this, you're using it very wrong. So using Fix Plus really helps to melt those powders down to look more skin-like. Then I go in with my actual setting sprays. So first up, I'm going to use De-Slick by Urban Decay. And I love using De-Slick right in the center of my face where I tend to get the oiliest. Just like that. Then to set all over, I am going to use All Nighter, also by Urban Decay. And I use this all over my face. So now I'm going to do my brows, and I'm actually going to do those off camera only because it's going to take me a little bit of time. So as soon as I'm done with brows, we'll be right back. So now for the eye makeup look of the actual skull tutorial itself, I'm going to be using the ABH Soft Glam palette to do so. I am going to use two shades in the palette. They are actually one right above the other. We have Orange Soda, and then we have Burnt Orange right underneath it. So I'm going to use those two and blend those right into my crease area. I'm just going to take a really fluffy brush from Smashbox, and I'm just going to pick up those two shades, and then I'll begin buffing that into the crease area. I'm just working those two shades into the crease in like a mini circular motion. So now I'm gonna take a shader brush, which is gonna be this puppy here. It's a MAC 217 brush. And I'm gonna use the shade Noir, which is on the end here. And I'm gonna really pack that onto the actual lid area of the eye. We'll begin blending it out and softening things as we go. I'm just going to take that same brush that we used for our crease area, and I'm just going to begin softening the crease. So I'm going to use the same kind of circular motions for the crease right where the black meets the remainder of the actual crease, just to begin blending things out and softening it. So you see how the right eye looks in comparison to the left eye? Big difference. So during the blending process, you're always gonna lose a little bit of pigment. So I'm gonna start with my lids and I'm gonna go right back into the black shade Noir and just really begin packing that onto the lid again. And then I'm gonna go right back into that same fluffy brush and just re-blend everything out. All right, so we're pretty set right now for the eyes. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my Urban Decay 24/7 Glide On Pencil in the shade Perversion, and I'm just gonna quickly line my lower lash line before we begin smoking things out. And I love Perversion for this because it is super dark. It is probably one of the best black pencil liners I've ever tried. All right, so our waterline is now complete. I'm gonna go back into our Soft Glam palette and I'm gonna take those two shades that we used initially, which are Orange Soda and Burnt Orange, and I'm just gonna begin smoking out the lower lash line. So I'm gonna use a short smudger brush by Smashbox, and I'm just gonna take those two shades, mix those together. So now I'm gonna go into Noir, which is the black shade that we use, and I'm just gonna pile that right on top, layer that right on top actually, and just bring it into the outer V area just to tie everything together. So I'm just going to apply my black shade underneath here. And then I'm just gonna bring that up to the outer V area of the eye to marry our top area. So now I'm just gonna take that fluffy brush that we used initially, and I'm just going to hit the corners of the eye just to soften and blend a little better. All right, we're all smoked out. So now I'm gonna use a little bit of the Shiseido Aura Dew in the shade Solar. And now I'm actually gonna use my finger and just apply this to the center of the eye. And this is just gonna add a little bit of oomph to our skull head. See? So now I'm gonna begin creating the remainder of the skull face. So to do that, I am gonna use the Tarte Sex Kitten liquid liner. Now this is where you wanna make sure you have as steady as hand as possible. So I'm gonna begin with the nose, just because I feel like the nose is what's gonna help warm things up before we really get going. So I'm just gonna create a small triangle-like shape in the center of my nose. And then I'm actually going to give myself some points here, only because I feel like it's just gonna make it look a little dramatic or a little more dramatic. Right, so that is our first point here. So if you think about it, the way our noses are, it's like, if you were to remove the tip, for the most part, you see like the actual bone shape itself. So pretty much just mimicking that for the most part, but also adding a little bit of a twist to it. And then I'm just gonna fill that in. And what I like about this process is that once you're done filling it in, if you feel the need to make any adjustments, you still can. It just depends on preference and the look that you're going for. All right, so our nose is complete. Now we're gonna begin the mouth. This is the fun part. So what I like to do first is I actually like to create my lines on the side of the mouth first as a guide, and then I'll go in later and put in my teeth. So I'm just gonna go along with the natural shape of my actual jaw when creating my mouth, and then I'll go and I'll put in the teeth, and then I'll actually begin creating other shapes outside of the actual the teeth themselves, if that makes sense. So now I'm just going to follow the way my face is. So right under the center of my nose is where I'll begin my first line. And we'll just line things up as we go. And honestly, I try to follow the way my actual teeth are, but it never pans out that way exactly. So I start off really well. And then as we get to the back is when I'll either make things a little bit bigger or smaller depending on how I'm feeling. So if you mess up, it's really not a big deal. I just feel like it adds a little more character to your actual skull head. But aside from that, if you don't want to do the lines in particular this way, you can get really creative and try to mimic the actual shape of teeth. So for the first area of my face around my mouth area is where I'll begin creating like those little teeth per se. And then I like to just fill things in if it makes sense for me to do so. But I feel like the lines also work perfectly as well. So we have 1, 2. Those are our 2 teeth, all right? So I'm just gonna bring the lines down so that they meet my actual lips if they're closed, and then I'll begin creating actual teeth. And the way our teeth are is that nothing is ever really straight. They kind of narrow out as they get to the top. Of course, it's hidden behind your gums, but I feel like it just really adds a little more depth and character to the actual skull head if you really try to get those little details. All right, so pretty much we are now complete with the teeth. I've taken my time and really got into some detail here, so you can definitely see along the sides a lot of detail for the most part. I feel like I said, this is your time to be creative, so as long as you're feeling the look that you're going for, just keep at it and be patient, take your time. So now I'm just gonna begin shaping the actual jaw of the skull head. So I'm gonna use my same liner. And with this part, I always like get a little out of the box with this one. And I like to begin right here where technically my jaw is. And then I'll just bring that out like that. Simple. Same thing on this side. And I always feel like one side is a little better than the other. Simple. And then what I like to do is I will also do one at the top slightly, just so that you have the idea of the actual jaw. I'll begin filling in the bottom one. And with this, you never want to fill it in all the way to where it's super close to the teeth. You always start at the back and leave just a little bit of that area open. So now that we have our jaw for the most part completed, I'm gonna take that same short shader brush. I'm gonna dip it back into Noir in the Soft Glam palette, and I'm just gonna shade a little bit underneath this top line that we have created up here. This is just gonna give it a little more dimension. And I'm actually gonna add a little bit to the area down here because it's not as harsh as the liquid liner. It's giving a gradient effect as well. So we're complete there. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my liquid liner again, and I'm just gonna draw a couple of cracks on my chin. So what I like to do is I will just draw some lines initially. And for these lines, you want them to be as soft as possible. So I'm actually gonna tilt my head up, and I'm actually starting way under my chin here, and then I'm gonna bring them up. And you see how I just darkened that one up in the middle there? It really helps to give it that crack-like effect. All right, so now we look like we have a cracked chin. So now for my favorite part, glitter. I am going to take the NYX Cosmetics glitter. This is the gold glitter. And for my adhesive, I am using the Too Faced Glitter Glue, which is a glitter shadow primer. And I'm gonna use this all over the face. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that right onto the back of my hand. And I am going to take a small detailed brush. This is the MAC 219. I'm gonna take my adhesive onto the brush. And wherever I want glitter is where I'm gonna put that adhesive first. So I definitely want glitter teeth. And then I'm gonna take my glitter into the cap again. So then I'll put my adhesive in a few areas and then I'll go back and just apply my glitter right on top. And you want to try to get as in between the teeth as possible. You don't want to get much glitter on the actual lines that you've created. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna add a little bit of glitter to my brows and to the inner corners of my eye. So same thing, using the same brush and that adhesive. I'm just gonna lightly pat it onto my brows. And because we do have a little bit of glitter on the actual brush, it's gonna pick up into the brows right away. Okay, now for the inner corner of my eye, I'm just gonna try to remove some of that glitter, only because I really want it to be right in the inner corner. I don't want a lot of glitter all over the place now. So I'm just gonna dip right back into that adhesive. And I'm just going to pop that onto where I want my glitter to focus. So now I'm just gonna add a little bit of glitter to my nose. I have like the perfect amount of adhesive remaining on my hand. And mainly for this, I want it to be in the center. Now we're gonna get right back into the eye area, and we are gonna start off using our IT Cosmetics Superhero Mascara. So I'm going to quickly apply this to my top lashes before we actually apply falsies. So now I'm gonna apply my lashes, and I'm gonna be using the Tarte TARTEIST Pro Lash in Girl Boss. And I'm also gonna be using the TARTEIST Pro Lash Adhesive as well. And now you're just gonna repeat the process for the other eye. So our last step is highlighter, of course. So I'm gonna use the MAC Hyper Real Glow palette, and I'm going to use the shade Gold Coasting, which is this shade here. So I'm gonna take this nice fluffy brush here. I'm going to dip it into the palette, tap off the excess, and then I'm just gonna highlight the highest points of my face that we can see. So that will be what's left of my cheekbone here and pretty much just the forehead area. Right? Now, one last little thing that you can get creative with is a little bit of detailing left for our skull head. So I'm actually gonna move my hair out the way because we're gonna actually add two little, like, I guess like a forehead plate kind of shaping. So I'm gonna take my liquid liner and I'm going to aim for the center of my forehead as best as possible. You wanna make sure that you're leaving that space open and you're creating that shape along the outer area. So I'm gonna start in my hairline and I'm gonna make that first shape here. And then I'm just gonna do the same thing on the other side. So I always like to make one a little higher up than the other one into the hairline. I feel like it just adds a little more of a creative and unique aspect to what I like my skull head to look like. All right, so now I'm gonna go back into Soft Glam. I'm gonna use that shade Noir using my same flat shader brush, and I'm gonna do some shading on the inside of that forehead plate. So I'm just gonna dip it right into the product here, tap off the excess, and then as close as possible, just gonna do a little bit of shading. Now I'm just gonna repeat on the smaller of the lines. All right, so I'm just gonna add two little last details. I guess you can call it like a brow furrow for the most part. And I'm just gonna add it to the beginning of my brows. I'm gonna be using my Sex Kitten liquid liner for this. And it's pretty much just creating a curve in the beginning of the brow. And it gives you like that kind of look. One of them, I always like to be a little higher up. I just feel like it gives it a little more oomph. All right, guys, that's pretty much it for this look. I really hope that you all enjoyed this glitter skull head. I know I did. Don't forget to subscribe to the Macy's channel. Subscribe to my channel as well. You can find me at Curls for the Girls. Please tag me in your recreations as well. I would love to see them. All products used in this video can be found at Macy's or Macys.com. Don't forget to subscribe, and I really hope to see you all next time.